Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynn. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us again today.
Yes.
You're feeling better, and I'm so happy. It's like you have been brought back from the dead.
So Dr. Brooke's visiting, we're recording, we're punching out, multiple episodes for you guys. And yesterday, 2 days ago, I just got this very strange stomach bug. I won't go into all the gory details, but it came, it was fast, and it passed quickly. Thank goodness. So, but it was interesting. It made life interesting there for
To say the
24
least.
hours. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And by the time you found out about it, I was already in the air. So I couldn't turn. There was no turning back for Brooke.
It was sudden. So yeah, it was touch and go there for a moment. But isn't it funny? Like after you come out of a sickness, how like elated you are. You're just like, oh my gosh.
You never felt better.
The difference. Yeah.
It's so true.
Great.
It's like that in life with anything. Like if you go through something rough or
Yes.
you're just so grateful for.
It's the highs and lows. That's the point of life.
Yes.
Right. You can't experience the good times unless you have some of the bad ones.
I agree. That's kind of why I like to live where there's 4 seasons. People will disagree, but like when you have a winter, for me, it makes you really appreciate summer. Like living in New England, we just love summer and fall so much. I would say spring, but we don't really even get a spring anymore. But summer and fall, you're so appreciative.
Seasons too.
Anyway, that's a story for another day.
So this week we're talking about checking in on your goals. I know. Well, let's make that a little bit more exciting. We're talking about just
yeah, that wasn't exciting.
We're talking about reflecting on your year, and instead of just doing that once a year, stopping in the middle of your year to make sure that things are on track. So that is something I think that will give you some power and edge. It's not something a lot of your friends are probably doing. So, you heard this here, and it's a great secret, wouldn't you say? Like you've been doing this. How often do you check in with your goals, first of all?
So I've mentioned this before, but for newcomers, or it's always good to repeat, I keep my goals traditionally up on the wall in my laundry room because I spend so much time in my laundry room, so I can just peek in them and remember. This is the thing, right? Number one, when you write down your goals, you have to then keep them somewhere that you can refer back, because sometimes we forget. So for me, it's almost like, if not a daily check-in, a couple times a week check-in.
That's great.
And then beyond that, I should do a better job. I know a lot of people, and you may do even like a quarterly or a monthly. I got away from that this year just because I've been so busy, but the mid-year is a big deal for me.
Yes.
It's made a huge difference.
Yeah. So
what about you?
About that today. I like to check in quarterly, but we check in as a family mid-year and end of year, but I do a personal check-in quarterly.
Okay.
It just seems like too much to get the family together to do it every quarter. But I love to use this framework that I'm going to share with you guys today on my quarterly, as part of my quarterly check-in rhythm.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's quick. Some quarters are more in depth than others, but I don't look at my goals as often as you do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that I at least stop every 3 months and say, okay, am I where I need to be?
Yep.
And if I'm not, what could I do differently? So,
yeah, I think that's a very good point. If you're not checking in on it really regularly, even through the week, then you probably should do like an end of the month or a quarterly.
Yeah. Otherwise,
because if you just do,
it's a New Year's resolution, which is just spoken
I agree.
at the beginning of the year and then forgotten about.
Right. And even if you do it, you set them at the start of the year, right before the start of the year, and then you check in mid-year, I still don't think that's enough. I mean, listen, you're ahead of the game if you're doing that, because a lot of people don't, if you want to be intentional about your life, but you need more steps in between.
I think so. But I do think it's important to just establish the rhythms that work for you.
That's true.
And so we're talking about what works for us, but please don't feel boxed in to do that. Just do something, right?
I agree.
Just do something. And so first off, if you have not already downloaded our goals framework,
yes,
we're going to provide the link for you in the show notes.
I will provide the link in the show notes, but you can also go right to the website, www.lifeafterkids.com. There's a tab over on the left that says resources. If you click that tab, all of our free resources pop up and you'll find the goals
Great.
framework there as well. But it will be linked in the show notes and you'll get it in the email that goes out about the podcast.
Great. So that's what we're using to check in. That's what we're using to reflect on is the goals that we put in place for ourselves. And we have done previous podcast episodes on setting goals and how to set goals. So check out those older episodes for more background information. Today, we're just going to talk about what do you do when you check in and how to go about that and how to make it really effective for you.
Before we go there, I want to just touch on one more thing with our goals framework. I don't even think I told you this yet, but I like to have normally I would, before we made the goals framework for all of our community, we just took what we were doing and made it our own, right? Because I was doing it before just on a poster board. So we made it like nice and I think pretty and motivating. There's some motivating phrases and things like that on it. But I always did mine on a big poster board and then I would screenshot it and then I would print out a smaller version so I could keep in my planner so I could look at it there too. I'd keep it on my desk or what have you. And what I did with this goals framework is I printed it, right? I printed it from the computer and I keep that planner, desk, whatever. But then I took the PDF to Staples and I had it printed in poster size. And so that is in the laundry room, right? So I have, anyway, just if you got the goals framework and you want to take it up a notch, that's an option. It was super simple to do. It was ready the same day.
Great. And then it's just right there and it's something you can put in your, in a room in your house where you spend a lot of time, your office maybe, or entryway or wherever, and it will look cute on the wall.
Yeah, it's and by the way, I didn't do this, but for more money, you could have it laminated so that dry erase works and you could continue to use that same one every year.
Love that.
If you wanted to. So anyway, that's just a little tip.
Just
go on.
Recapping, if you're not convinced about setting goals, so this is really, like we said, this is a differentiator. Not everybody's doing this. So this is going to differentiate a lot of our thriving individuals at this phase of life are doing things like this, doing practices like this. Because when you set goals, it directs you to the right action to take for what you're wanting out of your life, whether that's more of a certain type of emotion, whether that's more of a certain type of thing, whether that's some accomplishment that you want to make. It allows you to direct that action into what you've said you want. And then with what we're going to talk about today, we're going to teach you to check back in on that so that you can then repeat those actions to eventually arrive at your destination.
Right. Yeah. So many women, how many times do we hear from our community? Like, I know I want to do something, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Here's your start. Not the check-in is not your starting point. The starting point is even if you just write a list of things that you want to do, and you've cited research before, I think out of Harvard, that when you write something down, the chances of it, what's the percentage? Do you remember the percentage of it actually happening? That's what I thought it was, 80 or 90%. So this is really not, if you really are on the path to looking for more meaning and purpose and fulfillment in your life, do not take this discussion here lightly. It's makes a big difference.
Your brain hates a contradiction.
Yeah.
It hates a contradiction. So if you tell it something, it wants to make that thing real, right? Whether that's, here's what's really powerful, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So if you're telling yourself bad thoughts, your brain will act as if. So keep that in mind. But if you're telling it something good, if you're writing down something good, if you're feeling that thing and you're willing to take that action, it's the goals that help you to get there. And it's just amazing how it just, there's a sort of like a kind of like magical way that writing goals just sort of starts that process and gets it all to come together. Okay. So,
no, I was just going to say, do you want to start by breaking down the goals framework or do we want to go right into mid-year check-in? You lead the show. I'll just come along for the ride. Well,
I don't have the goals framework in front of me. If you want to break that down real briefly.
I can. And by the way, if you wanted deeper, we could probably do a podcast on it too, but you can also grab, you will see when you go to get the goals framework, you have the option to grab the video tutorial that you did for the goals framework.
Yes.
So that's an option too, just so you know if you need an even deeper dive, but I'll just real briefly, just so you know where we're headed with a mid-year check-in. So with our goals framework, we basically got, it's like almost like a wheel. So you've got a center part and then you've got spokes that come out. And the center part, you pick a theme or word for the year and maybe like an inspiring phrase or a scripture. And then we have lines that go out from there with different areas that are important in your life that you're going to make your goals.
And we
So
list those categories.
and they, yep, so we have all the categories in for you, and then you list, 3 to 5 things or what have you in those categories. So um one is physical health, right? One is personal space, one is contribution. Like there's all different ones, right? So anyway, that's kind of where we head with that. We don't give you a framework where you're just listing things haphazardly, I
Right.
guess is the point. We have it broken down and sectioned out with important areas to focus on. There's a spot there to list where you might want to take more risk in your life and put
Mm,
yourself out there. So that's where, as you talk about mid-year check-in, it might look different for you. But for me, when I do my mid-year check-in, I pull that out
of
and
course.
go really
That's
detailed
great.
into it. So go ahead
Yeah,
from there.
and I love that because like just what you just said to remind you guys it's tailored for women in our phase of life, right?
Yes.
So that's
And
why
for
it's
moms
and for
specifically,
moms.
because we have some things there with,
Yep.
family goals and things that
Yep.
you want to.
Yep. So that's why we like it
Yep.
for that purpose. And if you are not a stranger to setting goals, but you've never done the mid-year check-in, here again is why, because a lot of people set goals, or not everybody, but some people set goals.
Yep.
Some take action, but they don't check in necessarily.
Yes.
And then as the year goes on, inevitably you get off course.
Yeah, I mean, you see this, we hear this all the time, people setting like New Year's resolutions, which could kind of be misconstrued as goals, but then, you get to February and you've already started to forget because this is the thing, you either didn't write it
Yep.
down, you don't check in. It's one thing to write it down, it's one thing to take the action on what you wrote
Yes.
down.
Yep. So we recommend as a minimum to check in mid-year.
Yep.
And if you really want to, as you say, take it up a notch, check in quarterly as well.
Yes.
And then at the end of the year, so don't wait till January 1st. I mean, that's the best case scenario is you do this in November, December. It's never too late. Don't get us wrong. You can
Yes.
download that in April and set your goals framework. And some action is better than
And
none, right?
absolutely.
Or late action is better than none, always. But ideally, you would do the setting for the future year at the end of the year. That way, come January 1st, you're up and
You're ready
running.
to go.
You're up and running. All right. So in the check-in, it can be as formal as, Mark and I, my husband, have rented a hotel room in our town and gone to this hotel, like a staycation kind of thing, and sat down and checked in.
I
Or
think I knew you did that.
that's more, I should say that was more for setting our yearly goals. So
That's
more of
great.
our like end of year. But yeah, we did that for years. I mean, we made it a very important day and we hammered out all the categories and then we would go out to dinner or celebrate in
Yeah.
some way. So you could make it very formal, or it could be as simple as you sitting down on your patio with a cup of coffee and just going through the little framework that we're going to give you here.
Yes, which is what I do.
Yes.
And let me just say, like, I am just so impressed that you all do that as a family and you and Mark take time to do that together. I just want to let you all know listening, if you have the capability to do that, great. But if your husband or significant other or family is not on board, don't let that stop you because mine is not. Like, my husband is amazing. We have a great relationship, but that's just not his. And he's very, it's not like he's not getting things done.
Right.
He's very
He's got his own
motivated, but he just does it in his own
organization.
way. He
Yeah.
doesn't need to be writing things down. He's motivated on his own. That doesn't stop me from doing all this. I just do it on my own. So that's,
Yep.
I just want you all to hear that. And when I don't want to take away from where you're going. I can talk about
No.
how I did it.
I was just going to say, I think that just comes from us working together,
Yeah, maybe
and
that's part
that's
of it
such a
too.
unique, most of you guys, aren't going to be
Well,
working
it's
with your
amazing.
husbands.
Yeah, but some people, I mean, listen, there is
Some people
something
do.
to say about just the goals that especially in this phase of life. Some of us might be at the phase where we're maybe stepping away from like the career piece, or if you did work
Right.
together like you and you're looking at creating things outside of that. as a couple. So it's perfectly fine to do that. It's just, and
I think that's a good point because a lot of people are wondering how to reconnect and are
yeah,
worried maybe a little bit about that. And it's a really good way to grow together, to pick something that you're both working
100%.
towards and sit down and, make that a big deal,
Mhm.
and work on that. Hmm, that's good.
Especially if, a lot of women we're hearing from is you get to this place, we've talked about this before, the kids, you're so wrapped up with the kids that sometimes we let our, not that our relationship slides, but like everything revolves around the kids, and then the kids are moving on and you have to reconnect again with your spouse or partner, whatever it is. And this might be a good way to start to recreate your life together, is to sit down and have a day like that. So
Yes, and to add to that, another reason I love the goals framework is because it's not all about, and some of you guys are out there cringing because you think, well, I'm getting ready to retire, or, I don't work outside the home,
yeah,
or my whatever the situation is for you, I don't plan to go back to school. It doesn't have to be about those, hard and fast, like, this is how I'm going to make money, and this is
yep,
how much money I want to make and all
yeah,
that. No, you guys, this is us designing and creating our life, whether that's your retirement,
yep,
designing your retirement. How do you see yourself? Do you want to sit on the couch and watch the evening news every
mhm,
night? Or would you rather be out, playing pickleball
yeah.
in building a community or moving to a new town or whatever that might be? So goals are for everybody, not just for people in business or people
Right.
in the career path.
And they're for all aspects of your life. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because there is a section on our goals framework for career/contribution, but um it's just one section and there's 8 or 9 sections. So there's plenty of other spots in our life at this phase that we want to. And I remember my dad saying once, he was up visiting us at the lake, and I was like, yes, I wanted to get to 3 concerts this year. And I'm going like, this is my third one. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I have goals of like fun things that I wanna do, and I had in mind to do, like, I wrote down that I wanted to go to 3
I love
concerts. He's
that.
like, "Why would you write that down?" And I was like, "Well, why not?" He's like, "Why don't you just go? Who cares?" And I said, "Because the year can get away from you so quick, and even something as simple as that, if you wanna build more of that, like, going to a concert of somebody that I really enjoy brings me so much joy, and I come out of there so buzzed and, like, ready for it just, I love it.
You
I
want
love
more
the
of
dancing,
it.
I love the singing, I love all the people around me, and if I don't write that down and make
I'm
a
gonna
point of
add that to
making
my goal
sure
list.
that I look
Oh my gosh,
for those things to do.
we just went to the best concert. It was Billy Joel, my
Oh,
favorite,
I am
and Stevie
jealous of
Nicks,
that
my
concert.
second favorite, and the same
It
thing,
must have
came
been
out of there and we took our daughter and she was like, "Mom," like, she really hasn't been to very many concerts. She's like, "Mom, I wanna do more of that." So I'm gonna add that. That's a great thing
and
to
there's
write
a
down. I'm
place
gonna add that to my goal list.
on the goals framework. It doesn't say concerts because not all of you might want to do concerts, but there's a place where you can build those types of fun types of things into your year. And it's
Yeah.
important to, that we don't want to let the days get away from us, which is easy to do, I think, at this phase of life, right? To just kind of get in the stuck
Well,
and
that's what happens is time is unfortunately going faster, even though it's not. Time moves at the same pace, but from a physics perspective, and this was explained to me by a physicist, and I'm not a physicist, so I'm going to hopefully not offend any of you out there in that field, but proportionally, one day is, as you get older, one day is a smaller percentage of your life. When you were young and you only had, you know, say, I'm going, how many days do we get?
oh boy.
Yeah. If when you were younger, if you only had, say,
It was a
700
smaller
days.
percentage
Yes,
because the
it was
number was so big.
right. Thank you.
Yes.
That's why
Because
I need you to
assuming you're
translate
living
for
like
me.
in the average, whatever
Yeah.
the average years
I
of your
think it's
life,
like
day
28,000
one is a
days.
very smaller
I think like an average life is 28,000 days.
yeah,
So if you're on day, 19,000
yeah,
out of 28, it's a much smaller percentage than say day
right.
900.
Absolutely. Well, you could look at it in years too and make it simpler. Assume you're going to live to whatever, say
Yep.
80. Day one of 80, one day is a far smaller
Right.
percentage than, sorry to bring it up, but 50.
Dun,
And-
dun, dun.
but that doesn't like, upset me. That doesn't feel
It
unsettling to me in any way. I'm sure it does to a lot of people
I think it
listening,
only
but
does well, I mean, it is sad, but I think if you have serious unfinished business, it gets you agitated a little bit. Like if there's really something you want to do, or there's
yeah,
somebody you need to forgive, or something that's,
yeah,
weighs on your heart
of
or mind,
course.
then it gets to be where it's like, oh, and that's a lot of times what the goals, that's what we're trying to bring out is like, what is it that you really
Yeah.
need from life this year?
Yeah, we're
So,
trying to give you guys a why of why
yes.
we wanna grab onto the day and make the
Yes.
most of it, or the year, or
Yes.
whatever that
Yeah,
is,
because
because
we feel that urgency.
yeah,
And so we want to be more intentional
yeah,
about that time. So,
absolutely.
what do you do in the mid-year check-in then? So, it's the same for me as it is quarterly. I use a very simple 3R framework. I'm going to recap, and I'm going to explain each of these in just a moment. But
Okay.
I'm going to recap, I'm going to reflect, and then I'm going to recommit.
Okay.
Recap, reflect, recommit. So, and I just, that's what works for me.
Yep.
So I'm sharing that, but you get to design it. If you just want to simply sit down, and you can share how you do it, Dr. Brooke, but
Yep.
you just want to simply sit down and look through your goals and say, I can check this one off, I can check that one off, or scratch this one off,
Mhm.
or add this one in. And hey, I'm doing great. Write down a few action steps that maybe need to happen at this point and call it a day.
Yep.
That's amazing. Right?
Yeah. So do you want me to interject here? Do you wanna go through all, like, I
Go
can
ahead.
tell how I do it?
Yep.
What's best for you?
Go ahead.
So for me, I take a day, usually on a weekend when I can just focus on this. Last year, it was amazing. I did a post about this actually. I was at the lake and I sat down on our dock. I had my best girl Bristol laying next to me. That's my dog. And I had my goals framework and I had my calendar. I had my planner, my year planner. And I had good music. Like, I was just in a zone. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I sat there for a couple of hours, but
That
I
sounds
just
amazing.
loosely, I don't have like a this, I love this that you're giving us. But what I did was I go through each section of the goals
Yep.
framework, and anything that I've done, I cross off. The things that I didn't do, I went step by step through the sections, right? I didn't move on to another section until I finished the one. But if I didn't do it, I said, number one, do I still want to do it? Because you taught me this, like, if it's okay to let go of a goal.
Yes.
If you get a month in, 2 months, I mean, life changes,
Yep.
everything is always changing. And if all of a sudden whatever was for you in January
Is no
is not now
longer.
for you
Yep.
in June because life something came up, it's okay to let that go. And this is from a girl who, like, gets into that's brought me a long way, because
There's
I'm the girl
major
that
growth.
starts reading a book that I hate and I have to finish it
Yep.
just because I feel like I
That's the
have to check
achiever
that
in us.
box.
Yep. There's major
Um,
growth in that if you can get to that
so
place.
yeah, so I
So,
look at it and go, okay, do I still need to do this? No, check it off. Yes, I do. Okay, well, how is it happening and when does it need to happen? And that's when I go and refer to my planner that I have with me. And I look through the months that I have for the rest of the year, and where is this? When am I going to get it done? What do I need to do to make sure it happens? And I write that into my
that's great.
planner so that it's there. And that way each month through the rest of the year, it's in my calendar already. I don't have to necessarily go back
That's
to
a
the
really
goals
smart
framework if
piece.
I want. Does that
Yeah,
make
that's a
sense?
really smart piece. Yeah, and so, do it however you want. I'm gonna put in what I add
Yeah.
in, which is basically everything you said. It's just in a shorter little, or it helps me to remember to do all of these points. And maybe we can get this written up as
We
sort of
should.
a additional help for the goals framework. So yeah, and maybe we'll bring that out in June. That's
Yeah.
something
We
for
could
us
put
to
it in
write
the
down.
membership community for
Yeah.
sure.
So when this podcast is coming out, it should be available.
Yep.
So recap. So you just want to take a section, and I can already see this
Sorry.
coming together. That's okay. Where you're going to write out your successes. Like, where did you win? Like, and I mean everything. Like, this is a time to celebrate you. And there's very often where we can actually fully come out and not stay humble and
Mhm.
not try to shrink back. This is a time where you get to say, you know what? I killed it in this area. Or,
Amazing.
wow, look at this happened, or this came together, or finally this thing. And that's really the start of your mid-year check-in, is to really start with those successes, get you on a high note, And then also just looking at goal progress. So maybe you haven't fully completed a goal, but you've come more than halfway,
Mhm.
or you've come a quarter way on a goal that you thought was going to take,
Yeah,
so much longer. So that is the start. Just want to recap and stay in your successes. Next, you want to move on to the reflect stage. So again, I can see this all written out already.
yeah,
It'll be
you're
available
getting
for you
excited,
guys.
aren't you? You love a
I
framework.
am. I do love a framework. If it's not written down, it doesn't happen. So this is where we're gonna come, just set out some highlights. So different than the successes, just like what were your best memories? What were things that stuck out to you? Because you can keep these, and then this is almost like a journal, which is sort of
That's great.
capturing your year. So highlights are a little different. Maybe you had an amazing dinner at a, fancy restaurant. That wouldn't necessarily be a success, but it was a highlight.
Mhm.
And then great opportunities that you were able to take part of. Maybe it was to go to an amazing concert.
Yeah,
Maybe it was to go, I don't know, along to a volunteer opportunity
yep.
or something, whatever it is for you.
A
So
great weekend with a
great
girlfriend or girls'
weekend
night
with
out or something.
exactly. So just want to add time in for that. And then also things you're proud of, and then areas for future growth. So I think that's really important. That area for future growth is those learns,
Yep.
because that's where we take all of the lessons that we've been learning and put them down and help us going forward.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that.
Yep.
So I definitely miss that piece, and I'm glad we're having this discussion because I'll add this into my recap mid-year. I didn't do a lot of like reflection or recap,
Mm,
and I think that's definitely a
it's a good
important
piece.
solid piece.
Yep.
I think that's going to bring you gratitude first of all and put you
Yes.
in such a good space for the things that you've accomplished.
Yep.
Right. And that it's just, that's a great kind of, I do that toward at the end of the year. I look back on the whole year, but it's great to do that midway
Yeah,
through.
right? It's so important. And then setting your priorities for the next year. So that is a part of the next piece, which is recommitting to your goals. So recap, reflect, recommit. This is where you get to throw out goals that don't mean anything to you
Yep.
now, and it's okay. Just get really heart centered on it. Just make sure it's not because it's scary or too
Right.
challenging, or you just got a little lazy about it.
Yep.
If it's something you just truly thought you wanted, but you no longer want, it's okay. Just let it
Yep.
go.
I love
But if
it.
it's something you just need to, dig in and say, okay, I really do want this. I just don't know how to make it happen.
Yes.
Then make the action step around what is it you need to learn,
Mhm.
or who do you need to connect with that can help you move that ball forward.
Yes. And by the way, don't also let it be, well, I'm not going to get this done by the end of the year, so I have to let it go. It's okay to
Yeah.
keep going at
Extend
it
your
and
time
extend
frame.
the time.
Yep.
Yes, this is a flexible.
Yep. I say tweak as needed. That's
Yep.
what I've got
I
written
love that.
here.
That's great.
So that recommitting piece that's the big part of it, but it's also setting action items or objectives. So you're in the mid-year, you've got some progress, hopefully, towards many of these goals. What is it that you would need to do now at this point in the year to be able to hit on all of them and reach your deadline? So now you're going to write out those action items
Amazing.
or objectives. Yeah. So recap, reflect, recommit.
I love it.
Quarterly and mid-year.
Yep.
Start with mid-year and then add in the quarterly if it's speaks to you,
Right.
resonates
If it
to you.
doesn't feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
then you can do it. And by
Yep.
the way, this year things can be fluid. I'm going to be honest. Normally I get my goals done. If not right before the holiday, I do them over the holiday break. And I love that because usually we go somewhere warm after Christmas. I'm usually with you.
Yeah.
And you get some downtime, and I love to have a day or a morning where work through that after Christmas, but before the new year. And I didn't do it this year because I was with my brother and his family, and I was having a blast in just spending time
Mhm.
with them. And then we went into the first of the year, and things just got so crazy busy.
I
We
know,
got
right?
real
What
busy
happened
with
this
life
year?
after kids. I didn't even get to anything until probably February, which is not
Yeah.
like me at all. But the reason I'm sharing this is because it's never too late.
Great.
So I finally got the time is probably mid February, which is for me. And in the past, I may have just said, I didn't get to it forget about
Yep,
it. But
next
no, I
year.
knew I still wanted to do it. I gave myself the grace.
That's
It's
great.
fine. And I still got to it and still mapped out, you know? So
Excellent.
this is, once again, it's fluid.
Yep.
You do it where it fits in, but
Yeah,
make a point to do it.
I agree.
Yep.
And I think just ending off, just remember to set some goals that scare you a little bit. I think we do have that built into our goals
It's on the
framework now
goals
that you
framework.
remind
Yeah,
me of
taking
that.
that risk.
But, you know, I
So
think this
important.
is where we want to challenge you. If it
Yes.
doesn't scare you a little bit, it's probably not big enough for you, right?
Yeah.
So this process is going to get really like repetitive if you are just going to set things that you know you're going to accomplish anyway,
Yes.
right? So this is for the things that you would be really proud of looking
Yep.
back.
Yep.
Because that comfort zone is comfortable and it's sure nice in there, but nothing good grows there. I mean,
Yes.
some stuff grows there, but like
Yes.
the really beautiful flowers and the really cool plants don't grow there. You
Not
want to get
typically.
outside your comfort zone.
And that doesn't mean every single thing on your goals framework has to be that way, but a couple of things, right? I think we have a place for like three different things,
Yep.
right? So even if you picked one thing, that's a good start, especially if you're used to staying pretty comfortable, but
Yeah.
just, take that leap. And by the way, we did a whole podcast episode, and I can put the episode in the show notes and in the email that'll go out on taking more risks and why it's so important. So
Yes.
you definitely, if that piqued your interest and you want to know more, you'll want to go back and
Yes. I
watch that
love
episode,
that
listen to
episode.
that episode, or watch it on
Absolutely.
YouTube. So what else you got?
That's it. Close her up.
Yeah, I love this conversation. Coach. Done and done.
Check it
Okay.
off. Check it
Okay.
off the list.
Check it. Yep.
No,
Check it.
I
We've
think that
achieved
was
our
good.
goal.
Hopefully that was brought some value to you guys, and I hope you start your mid-year check-ins.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for listening to us. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Once again, the website is www.lifeafterkids.com, and you can find the goals framework there. I'll also link it in the show notes. And just let's listen. It's June. We got 6 months more left.
Woo!
What are we doing?
Let's go, girl.
Let's get it. Have a great day.